Hey y'all, welcome back to the Foxfire Dispatch. I'm your host, Liz Purvis. Today's episode is about what it looks like to say yes when your community needs someone to step forward, even when the stakes are high. The district is tough, and the national political moment feels a little bit loud. My guest today is Kate Compton Barr, who's running as a Republican candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 14th Congressional District. That's right, we are interviewing our first Republican candidate here at the Foxfire Dispatch today. Kate is running in the March Republican primary against Congressman Tim Moore in CD 14. Kate Compton Barr is a trailblazing advocate for democracy who made waves as the first candidate to run a can't-win campaign for North Carolina Senate District 37 in 2024, shining a spotlight on the harmful effects of gerrymandering. By embracing her uphill battle with humor and determination, she mobilized voters and sparked conversations about the urgent need for fair representation in American politics. Now she is taking her talent to toppling one of the most powerful Republicans in North Carolina, one who has repeatedly let Western North Carolina down, and that's Congressman Tim Moore. With over 2 decades of experience in behavioral science, Kate specializes in persuasive communication and behavior change grounded in evidence-based research. She is a senior behavioral scientist at the University of Michigan Center of Academic Innovation, where she develops tools and strategies that empower individuals. Kate's career reflects her belief that meaningful change is possible through courage, creativity, and the power of collective action. She's running in a district that doesn't always get the attention that it deserves in national conversations, but it's a home of working families, rural communities, small towns, and people who are deeply invested in this state and this country. If you remember our interview with Sydney Hutchinson, who's running in one of the state house races in Gaston County, that is part of CD 14. The district that Kate is running in. Now, today, we're going to talk about what it means to run for Congress from a place of values, what Kate is hearing on the ground as she canvasses, knocks doors, talks to voters, and how she's thinking about representation in this moment of deep political cynicism. And also what it takes to keep showing up when the work is hard, like this work is. So grab your coffee or your water or your stress munchies and settle in. This is the Foxfire Dispatch. Hey, Kate, I am so glad you're with me today. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, Liz. I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah, for those, this should come out on the Friday after what is either a snowstorm or an ice storm that's coming into town. So we're all kind of hunkering down across North Carolina and like hoping for the best over here. My goodness, sending a lot of good vibes out to the Western North Carolina part of where you're from, and so many of our friends who are worried, understandably, about how
Yeah.
that's going to go. I was thinking a lot. I know you recently took some trips up to like Chimney Rock and some places that are so really struggling, and was just thinking a lot about those folks yesterday as we were doing store stuff and getting prepared.
Yeah, I can't imagine how it feels to have just lived through a hurricane with massive flooding and to know that your infrastructure isn't where it needs to be because the federal government screwed some stuff up. And now you've got another storm coming and you're worried about losing power and, maybe you just got it back, frankly. It's a lot.
Yeah, I also like just saw on Threads, which is where I've been going more than Twitter these days, that like the Trump administration has ordered those who are in FEMA houses out by Tuesday, or $3,000 a month fines, which seems crazy, cruel, insert terrible adjective here.
And totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is crazy and it's cruel and it just doesn't need to be that way. Like there's no point except to be cruel.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and share with the listeners, because I know you're running for Congress, but you didn't start there. You started with this unwinnable Senate race in 2024. So will you tell us a little bit about your run for Senate District 37 and how that led to the choice and the switch to run for CD 14?
All these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in December of 2023, the Democratic Party was trying to get someone to run in every seat. And a lot of you may remember that like just a couple months before, in October of 2023, we had gotten new state Senate, state House, and U.S. House maps from our state legislature. And instead of having fair maps, our state Supreme Court had said that partisan gerrymandering was constitutional. And so the most gerrymandered maps in North Carolina's history came out, and that was October. And my state Senate district had previously been represented by Natasha Marcus, and she was a blue female loudmouth in the state Senate, and I love her. But because she was loud and female, the Republican state legislature had drawn her into an extremely red district, and I was pretty frustrated about it. So I was standing in line for a glass of wine at this Christmas festival in Davidson, and someone jokingly came up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to run for state Senate in a district that you will lose?" And I was like, "Maybe I do. I think I might want to do that." So I reached out to Natasha and to the state Senate caucus, and I told them I would run, but that if I ran, I was going to be brutally honest about the chances of winning, which were 0. And so I ran as Kate Barr Can't Win. My background is in behavioral science and persuasive communications, and I felt like we needed to be honest about what was going on with our gerrymandered maps. And I didn't really expect anything to happen, except that I would then go lose and go back to my behavioral science job. But the campaign took off, and we ended up getting a lot of local, state, national, international even attention, because it was, I guess, such a radical idea to tell people the truth. And then when we looked at the data after the election, which I obviously lost because that's how this works. When we looked at the data after the election, it turned out that Iredell County, which was the bulk of my district, it's basically District 37 is like Iredell County and a little smidgen of Meck, and that's it. Iredell County was one of only 8 counties in the state that got bluer in 2024, and the other 7 had all been affected by Helene. And then we saw voter turnout maintained in 2024 compared to 2020, which was unusual in the state. I outperformed state Senate candidates in similar districts. And so it looked like this campaign to lose had actually had an impact. And I still think that voters should be in charge in a democracy, and that voting power and making sure voters have that power to hold their leaders accountable is at the core of how democracy works well when it works. So I was trying to figure out what to do next. We started something called the Can't Win Victory Fund to help candidates run can't win campaigns, radically honest and transparent campaigns across the state and ultimately across the country. And then it became clear that a long game and prepping for 2030 fair maps and building the bench was going to be important, but that we also had to do something right now, because basically Donald Trump and his whole regime was going to wreck our country before we could get to fair maps. And so I started looking for different ways to disrupt the gerrymandering system. And it just so happens that I live in Congressional District 14, which is Tim Moore's district. And Tim Moore is one of the principal architects of our voting maps that are so rigged. He's also super corrupt. And so I just started to really enjoy the idea of primarying him, because I can run honestly. I can run on the policies I would want to implement. I can just put an R next to my name so that I can run in the election that is actually competitive. But I wasn't sure I was going to do it. So I didn't change my voter registration until May, and I was still just holding it to wait and see. It is also, I ran as Kate Barr Can't Win when I was a Democrat in District 37, and I'm running as Kate Barr Can Win as a fake Republican in Congressional District 14, because those two things are equally as messed up. It should not be this way. Neither of those statements should be true.
Yeah, because I think when we have talked about this race before, the amount of votes that you need to get for this primary is an achievable number, hypothetically.
Totally. Yeah, so there are 544,111 registered voters in the district. unaffiliated voters and Republicans can vote for me in the primary. That's about 400,000 registered voters in the district.
Oh my God. That's so crazy.
Yeah. And the majority of them are unaffiliated. And then when you look at primary turnout, which is incredibly low, and part of the point of this campaign is that in a lot of places in North Carolina, the primaries decide who is going to be in Congress or who is going to go to the state house or the state senate. So people got to vote in these things. Primary turnout is so low. So if you assume like 15% primary turnout, that's 60,000 Republican and unaffiliated voters. Divide it in half and add one, and I need 30,001 votes to win out of a total of 400,000 people that can vote for me, which is nuts.
Which is nuts. Yeah, so it sounds like this district pretty low voter propensity compared to the state. I know Granville's pretty high, and so when I
Yes.
look at things, it like skews a little bit. So talk to me about what like the moment when you started to think running for Congress was less of a hypothetical thing and more of a like we are making plans to do this.
So I had changed my voter registration in May just to like leave the option on the table. But when our state legislature passed the new gerrymandered Congress, like congressional map, in order
The
for
one that
Phil Berger.
fucked over my representative Don Davis. Yeah.
Yes. The one that Phil Berger like traded so that he could get Trump's endorsement in his primary because he understands how important the primary is for him. I just like got supremely pissed again. And this was the loudest thing I could do to make them pay. Like they thought, the Republican Party thought this district was guaranteed theirs. They weren't going to have to work. We keep having these elected officials try to dodge voters, which first of all is lame and sucks. And second of all, like we need to make them aware that we will come and find them and we will bring the election to them if they will not stand up for themselves.
That makes sense. Yeah. God, I want politicians to have to work for it and to be
Right. It
honest.
should be
And
so hard to get these jobs.
yeah, they should be living wage jobs and it should
Yes.
be hard to get them. You should be held to a
Yes.
high standard as a candidate, as a actual legislator. Yeah. Um okay, so we've talked a little bit about the numbers. What else can you share with us about the strategy of running in this primary?
So the main thing is just trying to reach unaffiliated voters. I think unaffiliated voters are really left behind by both parties. And we are seeing that that's a growing voting bloc, both in our state and across the country. We have a lot more independent voters, especially young people are coming in as unaffiliated voters in North Carolina. And so the strategy is to be like radically transparent about who I am and what I will do and why I'm running. And basically just say, like, if this is interesting to you, vote for me. If it's not interesting to you, don't. Like, you are in charge. Like, voters, you have a real choice. Now you get to use it.
Sounds really empowering. I love that.
I hope so.
Um, for those who don't live in North Carolina's 14th district, how would you describe this district? I think it's mostly rural and like outside of the Charlotte area, but my geography, I suck at geography. It is not my skill.
It is also not your fault because the other thing that gerrymandering does is make some really fucking weird shapes. And this district is one of them. So I live in Davidson, which is like north of Charlotte.
Mhm.
And the district kind of curves around Charlotte to catch the rich white folks in South Charlotte, but skip all of the, like people of color that actually live in the city. And then it stretches really far west in like a kind of almost a V-shaped pattern. And it goes up to Lake Lure and Chimney Rock. It hits Morganton, Kings Mountain, Shelby. Um, it's a mix of wealthy white urban, like suburban Charlotte folks. There's some rural farm country in there. Gaston County is like actually relatively dense from a population perspective. And then as you go farther out, it's just like increasingly rural, increasingly mountainous, very different needs that need to be represented between the folks who live in South Charlotte and the folks who live in, say, Lake Lure and Chimney Rock.
Yeah, that's a huge I grew up in Hickory, like, so not
Oh,
too
yeah.
far
So,
from
you
Lake
know,
Lure, and so, yeah, I can kinda see the stretch of
yeah.
gas in a chimney rock, like, holy shit. That's fuck gerrymandering. Um,
Yes.
I know
Also,
you're
uncap the House and we need smaller districts, but that's a problem for another day.
it's like one problem to solve at a time. I know you're already on the ground. I know you guys have been canvassing and in a really interesting way. What are the issues that are surprising you about the conversations you're hearing on the ground?
So, unsurprisingly, the number one thing people are talking about is how expensive life is. That they can't afford childcare, they can't afford healthcare, they can't afford their rent, they can't afford to buy a house. If they, even have the money to pay their monthly mortgage payment, they can't save up enough for a down payment. Um, they're talking about like just groceries. I mean, we're back to the whole damn egg thing, frankly.
Mhm.
Uh, Everything is just too expensive. So that I think probably matches expectations. The thing that has been really surprising though is how many Republicans in the district hate Tim Moore. Like I didn't expect that. Our strategy is unaffiliated voters, but I have emails and have had interactions with plenty of Republicans who are like, thank God I can't vote for that man again. I can't because he's pretty corrupt. He is like, you know, his moral center is questionable. Uh, a lot of folks may know that he got sued for alienation of affection, um, for having an affair with a married woman, and the woman's husband sued him. I mean, it's just like,
We were
and
calling
he
him
drives around in
Biscuitville
a
a couple years
Maserati.
ago, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah. Yep, there was a whole thing in a Biscuitville where he and this husband got into an argument. I mean, it's just like he's not a great person. He's not a great leader. He's not a great representative. And it turns out the Republicans in the district are like, yeah, we know. And
Give us someone
there's this,
else.
right. But there's also this like identity values crisis happening for a lot of folks right now. So much of our political ideology has come to like be our core identity. That's on the Dems and the Republicans. And it's a bridge too far for them to like go from voting Republican all the way to voting for Democrat. Like when we're asking them to do that right now, that is a really big step. But they will totally go from voting for Tim Moore to voting for a progressive liberal Republican. Uh, it's pretty funny to me.
Mhm.
I have like emails that say, I'm an embarrassed Republican. Thank you. I've been waiting for someone to challenge Tim Moore for years. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, dude, I still won't forget. I had a Republican who called me in probably like July or August of 2024 and was like, "Hello, I would like a Harris sign. How do I get a Harris sign?" And I was like, "Are really? Are you
Hmm.
serious? Like you're not trolling? You're yeah, really excited about Kamala Harris. We didn't have signs at the time. Took me like another
Yeah.
6 weeks to get him a sign, but when I did, he took a Josh Stein sign too, and like that was he's still a Republican, hasn't changed his party affiliation, but he did vote for those Democrats in 24, and hopefully also more open to voting for more liberal folks of all sizes. Yeah, voter interactions are can be really cup filling, can be really interesting. Have there been any so far that have really stuck with you as you've been having these conversations?
So I've two favorites. One is actually from the state Senate campaign, and I don't know if any voter interaction can ever take this off the top of the mountain, but one of the things that happens in these gerrymandered districts is that because the outcome of the election has already been decided by how the maps were drawn, candidates don't really show up for folks. Like there's not a lot of canvassing that happens. And so when you knock on people's doors, they're surprised to see you. Many of them have never had a candidate knock a door for them or even a volunteer. So I knock on this lady's door. She's 80 years old and she's lived in the house for 40 years. No one has ever knocked on her door. Um, I kid you not, she had like an old fashioned, like Yogi Bear picnic basket on the floor near the door, and it's full of 8-week-old spaniel puppies. And she literally tried to give me a puppy in gratitude for me coming to her door and talking to her for a little bit. I did not take the puppy. The puppy's name was Minnie because it looked like it had like a little, the puppy was a girl and she had a little Minnie Mouse shaped liver spot on her back. But I just like, those are the voters that if we show up for them, they will 100% show up for us.
Yeah. Oh my God. That would have been a fun, interesting way to complete a canvas with puppy in tow, for
Right?
sure.
My daughter is still really mad at me that I didn't take the puppy. The second one from this campaign is that we're trying a whole bunch of different things to reach voters because, I don't have the support of the Democratic Party because I'm not a Democrat. And I don't have the support of the Republican Party because I'm a fake Republican. And so there's not really infrastructure that exists to like help this campaign go fast. Like we have to build everything for ourselves, which is super cool, but also tiring. Anyway, it has taken us a little while to get yard signs, and we're doing canvassing where we're like doing lit drops where we leave people something more than just a piece of paper. So we were putting together hot chocolate packets around Christmas time that had like, Swiss Miss or instant hot chocolate and a candy cane and a Hershey Kiss. And it was like bagged up with a little bow on it. And it said something about like, "'Tis the season for fair maps." And then the QR code on the back of the tag is for the campaign. And we had volunteers dropping these off. And so I was delivering like 50 of these cocoa packets to a volunteer for her to distribute to her neighbors. And I just happened to pass this house, and they had taken their felt letterboard with, the like black background with the little white letters on it, and had made their very own sign about this campaign. And it was like, "Vote Kate Barr, North Carolina Congressional District 14, Republican primary, not a Republican, katebarrcanwin.com." And I have no idea who this person is. I still don't know. I definitely took a lot of pictures with that sign. We did drop off an actual yard sign later on when we had them, but it was so cool to see someone she had literally propped it on a chair in the middle of her front porch. You could not get to the door without going around this sign. And it meant a lot. I was like, this is the point of the campaign, is to give people an option and to give folks an opportunity to like take some power back. And she was really doing it.
Yeah.
I say she, I assume it's a she, could be a he, could be a they. I don't know. I just like assign these sorts of craft projects to suburban moms like myself in my brain.
Well, like Gina and I used to say, in this house, girly can be gender neutral.
That's right.
So, crafty
Yes.
girlies, gender neutral.
Yeah. Some girly pop homeowner did this.
And I love the like variety of the signs that you have, like all very consistent branding, but like very, very cohesive and interesting and like keeping people's attention. Also, great use of face on signs, because I'm like usually really not a fan of that, but like the way y'all did it, it is very legible, and I think it's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you. I don't like the actual photograph, but I also felt like people don't know who I am and I should put my face on there. I don't know. It made it look different. That's always the goal, is to do something that stands out.
Yeah, I think like legibility is my
Yes.
like gold lodestar for yard signs, and I feel like the putting the pictures on there often is unsuccessful, but I feel like yours is really successful. And like Nida alum, who does the like icon of
Yes.
her silhouette, I feel like is also really successful. So cool. I could nerd out about yard signs for a good minute.
Yeah.
But let's talk about housing affordability instead, because that's probably more relevant for a lot of people, and is obviously, like we talked about just a minute ago, becoming a real crisis here in North Carolina and across the country. What role should Congress be playing to address that housing affordability crisis?
I mean, the obvious answer is that Congress needs to be playing a lot of roles. A lot of it has to do with federal grant money, making sure that those federal grants are tied to zoning policies that allow for things like higher density housing near town and city centers, because state legislatures really control, especially in North Carolina, control what a municipality can and can't do when it comes to restricting development. Um, but Congress can control the money that flows into those state legislatures and use that to influence the way that the state legislature wants to implement zoning and housing policy. But also, we can do federal grants for like innovative ways to build homes, like how to build these like essentially prefab homes that can be dropped in place and are safe and are high quality. We can offer federal grants to rehab existing spaces in towns and turn them into high quality living units, right? Like take an empty storefront and make that like a mixed use space. And then the other thing that I would love to do is work on our H-2A visa program, which is a guest worker visa program, um, in a way that lets us bring in guest workers to help us increase our housing supply. So the way the visa works now is in order to come to the country, some employer sponsors you. You come, you work for them. This is how a lot of our immigrant farm labor comes to the country legally right now. So you come, you work for your single employer who has sponsored you. That employer can actually treat you like trash, but you don't want to change employers because then you lose your visa. So we need to solve that and figure out how to have guest worker programs that actually treat guest workers humanely and pay them appropriately. Totally solvable. And then you expand that program to ensure that folks can easily get those visas like quickly in an expedited fashion and to come and help build these homes that we so desperately need or rehab these spaces that are just sitting and waiting for us to turn them into something useful. We also have to stop the tariffs on Canadian lumber and Mexican gypsum. Those things are making housing supplies more expensive, which makes housing more expensive. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. We also need federal grant programs to help people make those down payments because a lot of them can make their mortgage payment. They just can't get the savings together to buy the house in the first place. That should exist. Like there are so many things we can be doing.
Yeah. I have two thoughts. One is that it sounds like the H-2A visa, that it would be helpful if it was more industry specific versus individual employer specific. Like if you could
Correct.
get those
It needs
visas
to
and
transfer to
yeah, yeah. And then the other thought is, and I think important to connect this dot. So the idea of like lowering the threshold of the cost of the prefab housing or fixing up other stuff is that then it can be sold at a lower price and people can
right,
still make money without everything being a $350,000 house.
right. And some of that is about just needing increased housing supply because when you have a limited number of anything, the cost of that thing goes up. Um,
Mhm.
and making sure that, we live, setting aside whether this is good or bad, we live in a capitalist system and we have all of these development companies who exist to make a profit. And they won't build things that don't make them a profit. So we have to figure out how to align our goals for affordable housing with the existing way that the market works in order to get a relatively speedy solution.
That
Should
makes
we
sense.
overhaul the entire housing system? Probably, but that won't fix things in my lifetime. So we start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that way ideologically about a lot of things. It's like, well, I
Yeah,
hear you that massive change is needed and we need to shift the Overton window like massively, but also what can we I think this was something that Hillary Clinton had said on the campaign about like how can we get things done as quick no, it was Liz Warren as quickly as possible for the most people as possible.
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And then we can work on big long term change. Like we got to get everybody safe, stable, secure. And then we can work towards like a more idealized version.
Yeah. Yeah, and working families are stretched really thin right now. Like you said, like the cost of eggs, surprisingly, milk, et cetera, it matters. I've been reflecting like every time we go to the store, we shop at Walmart. There are very few grocery stores in Granville County, and it's less expensive than Food Lion. But like When I was in grad school, I survived on $150 a month 10 years ago and like made that work, could make that work and did not
Yeah.
starve, did not eat great, but did not starve. And like, it's hard to get out of the grocery store for two people with a week's worth of groceries for that now.
Yeah. And I have 2 kids, and both of them have separate health issues that dictate things about the food they can eat. And like our grocery bill is more than our mortgage. Like it is insane.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not good.
that's a big stress on families, right? Anything when health insurance comes to rival the mortgage, when groceries come to rival the mortgage is often for us the biggest single
Yeah.
expense that we have, and to add something else that rivals it
Yeah.
completely shifts how you think about your budget on a monthly basis or less and
Absolutely.
shorter than that even. Um what do you think that economic security looks like in practice for the people who are struggling in America right now?
So obviously we have this giant gap where I think it was CBS Evening News did a study and 60% of Americans can't achieve a minimum quality of life. That 60% is actually the majority, right? So based on majority of Americans not being able to achieve a minimum quality of life. And then we have like a handful of billionaire oligarchs on their like fourth super yacht. That's a problem. That means we have a broken system. Um, there's a group called the Patriotic Millionaires that has a really interesting tax plan that I 100% co-sign and would love to help push through Congress. It has bipartisan support. The bills are already written. It's a thing we could get done in the first year if there was enough political will behind it. And basically, what it does is establish 0% income tax on the first $100,000 a household earns. So, doesn't matter who you are, your first $100,000 in the door, no income tax, federal. You can't control what the states do, but
Mhm.
no federal income tax. So, that is more money in your pocket right away. Um, it also starts to treat every dollar the same. So, it doesn't matter if you inherit that dollar, if you earn that dollar as part of your job, or if you made that dollar on the stock market. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, and they are taxed equally. So instead of having special carve outs for, say, capital gains that help the rich get richer, we are actually just saying, like, nope, you made a dollar that goes towards your $100,000. And once you cross that threshold, you start to pay taxes. And then you have higher taxes on folks that make more than $1 million a year. And that's how you pay for it.
Yeah. I I like that. One thing that I was really interested in, I was a Liz Warren girly, was her millionaire taxes when she was running for
Yep.
president, and the idea of a couple of cents at I think 2 million, and then a couple more cents at 50 million or 50 million and one, and I love the idea of like, let's just surprisingly $100,000 insufficient in most places to even support a mortgage,
Right.
which is not the story I was told when I was a
No.
child about what was needed to be successful in this life.
Yeah.
Um,
My first job, I got paid $28,000 a year and lived like pretty well on it.
I
And that
made
was 20 years
$12,000 a
ago.
year in grad school, and I could
Yeah.
afford to live by myself in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yep.
And that is completely not how it you
Nope.
you cannot find an apartment for $632, or it's a pigsty,
Yeah.
uninhabitable. Um,
I should add, related to wages, that the sort of third prong of the money agenda is what the patriotic millionaires call it. I don't really like that, but that's what they call it. Their third prong is that we raise minimum wage to $20 an hour.
yes.
So, in order to do that without putting a ton of stress on small businesses, you have to make sure that people have the money in their pocket to buy the thing the small business is selling. And then there are people who get frustrated about the idea of like taxing the wealthy who have, theoretically pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and like made all these gains. Like Amazon doesn't exist if we don't have roads for their trucks to drive on. And those roads are put in place by the government. And so you should have to pay to use those services.
That is so reasonable, and I think, like, related to that, those giant trucks, they cause more wear and tear on the road,
Yeah.
further like supporting the idea that that entity should, should help contribute to the roads. I feel that
Yeah.
way about like the water bills. Like I feel like what is happening here locally and also like across the state is that like there will be tax breaks for industry to move to a place, and they get these breaks on utilities, but then utilities raise for individuals. And that doesn't make sense because these big entities, of course, they put more pressure on the system than your 800 square foot mill house.
Yes. Yeah. And we like use the idea of lowering corporate taxes to, be more attractive to business. But if it's expensive to live in a place, nobody wants to live there, and then the business doesn't have workers. Like, we have just completely done this backwards. Like, companies should be paying an appropriate amount of tax for the benefit they get from participating in the American economy and using the services set out by the government.
And that is part of participating in the capitalist system that we have,
It
or
is.
it should be.
You got to
um,
pay for what you use.
mm, what a concept. Um, so obviously, these things that we're talking about kind of contribute to the disillusionment of a lot of voters. How are you handling conversations with voters who are just completely sick of, disillusioned with politics, and not trustful of anybody who's stepping into that ring?
I mean, honestly, I start out by saying, like, same. Like, I don't know who to trust. I get it. Like, I'm not super happy with what either party is doing. I don't feel like there's a government that represents me and my family's needs. Like, I start by validating where they are because I think so many of us are in that place where it's like, I don't know, how this system is working for me. Um, and then I also try to be like brutally honest, radically transparent. Like, you ask me a question and I will give you an answer, and it might be an answer you don't like, but I am still going to give it to you. Like, I stood in a Davidson town hall and told them I thought they needed more higher density housing near their town center, which is a thing they fucking hate.
Mm.
And they were just like, okay, lady. Um, and now they get to decide if they want to vote for me or not. But at least they're deciding based on the actual truth of what I think should happen. And I also am really trying to lean into the idea of we change these things from the outside and the inside. And so I work hard to figure out how to disrupt what's broken from the inside. And then we see folks like in Minnesota figuring out how to disrupt and break things from the outside. And it's going to take all of that to make the change that we need.
Yeah, I really believe that too. And the like, it takes all kinds. I think I saw maybe even on Anderson's social media recently, the Democratic Party chair for North Carolina, like, don't let your politics be so radical that you think that there's nothing you can do within the political system to change it. And don't let it, be so you know, rigid. Yeah, that you think
Yeah.
that the system is the only, that within the system is the only way to change it. And I was like, that I think more folks could benefit from that kind of expansive understanding of like we need a lot of different kinds of helpers.
Yes. And I feel like I have encountered honestly a fair amount of pushback from the Democratic establishment for trying things this way, which has maybe been the most disappointing thing about this run is like, I think I've been called a grifter who's just trying to raise money. People thought I was a turncoat and that I wasn't progressive anymore. I mean, it's just like absolutely insane shit. And I'm like, no, you guys, I want two progressive people on the ballot in November. Like, that is what this is. I don't
Mm.
understand how we are not aligned in that as a goal.
And like I will fully cop to, I was like I had question mark over my head as this was like coming up in the group chats that we're in, but I was like, you know what? Like I know this lady's a behavioral scientist. I know she knows a lot about gerrymandering. I think she's smart about these things and like probably smarter than I am about these things. So like
That's
I'm
not
gonna
true.
well, but like all of that to say, like, let's give her a minute. Let's see how this goes.
I really, really appreciated that you asked me questions and like we could have a real conversation about it. I feel like the folks who have remained like against this as an approach are the people who haven't actually taken the time to talk to me about it.
Yeah, that sucks. And I would just remind all of us that leading with curiosity is effective with voters and politicians alike.
Yeah.
Um, and that that
And
that, that
marriages and friendships, like do it everywhere. Lead with curiosity. That's what my therapist tells me every time.
if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about North Carolina politics or how local politics operates here, is there something that's at the top of your list?
This will be the least surprising answer ever. I would get us fair maps with competitive districts because then the voters have the power and we would have a purple state, just like the purple state we are.
Yeah, yeah, we used 7 and 7 used to be.
Yeah, fair maps gave us 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans in the US House. Incidentally, the unfair maps gave us 4 Democrats and 10 Republicans, which is the exact margin by which we have Republican control in the US House. So the North Carolina gerrymander delivered control of the US House to the Republicans, which is why it is unsurprising that they have been trying to use gerrymandering as a strategy to hold the US House because it worked for them before.
And if you ever think your vote doesn't matter, I hope folks can see how the local votes and the primary votes where less votes are needed, it totally trickles up to these congressional races, which impact the whole fucking country.
Yeah. And how satisfying would it be to beat a Republican as a fake Republican in the Republican primary? Like, I can't imagine a better way to send a message to Congress right now that your asses are on the line and you better do something because the voters are coming for you than to beat them in their own system in a radically transparent way. And then in November, like, we weren't supposed to win this district. And we will, because it will be 2 progressives on the ballot. So it doesn't really matter if it's me or the Democrat that wins this district in November, because you're sending somebody who is going to vote for a Democratic Speaker of the House in a seat that we were not supposed to win.
And you've sent a message, like you said, to Congress, to Trump, to Tim Moore, to Phil Berger, that the Republicans in this red fucking district would vote for a liberal over them because they're that disappointed.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So you're modeling a lot of leadership as you run this campaign. And we still don't have gender parity in Congress. So what are your leadership models?
I'm going to tell a story and it's a little involved. And so everybody just like stick with me. I promise. I was presenting at this conference and I went first in the day and I told a dick joke because
Oh my God, I'm so glad you're telling this story and it's going to be recorded. Fuck yes.
Okay. So I like to kick things off with a little laughter. And so I usually make a joke about the people with small penises that draw our districts. And then immediately following my presentation, the former president of Tibet, who lives in exile in Boston now, gets up and talks about wars over water and people who set themselves on fire to try to free Tibet. So I'm just like presenting this as the contrast between the 2 approaches and presentation styles we're dealing with. And his name is Lobsang Sangay, and he is amazing and brilliant. And it was an awesome experience to listen to him talk. And then later that night at the speaker dinner, he like came up to me and he was like, I so appreciate what you're doing. Like, we're the same. And I was like, we are absolutely not the same, sir, because I told a joke about penises and you talked about people who believe in something so strongly that they like will burn themselves. And he was like, no, people always ask me, when will Tibet be free? And I tell them that's the wrong question because we can't know that answer. That's not what's in our control. He said, but what I can do, and the question I can answer is say, what am I doing today to make sure that when Tibet can be free, it is ready? He said, you are doing the same in politics. Like, we don't know when the Trump regime will fall. We don't know when MAGA will dissipate. We don't know when we will get fair maps. But he said, you wake up every day and you figure out what you can do to make sure your community, your state is ready when that moment arrives. Um, and like that touched me a lot. And then he talked about this idea of carrying the torch that you uniquely can carry. He's like, it doesn't matter if other people grab their torches and carry their torch alongside. Like maybe they do, maybe they don't, but like you pick up your torch and you carry your torch as far as you can for as long as you can. And then you just hope that some other people are carrying torches alongside. Um, and so I hold on to that a lot, because talk about a person who has like really experienced some horrible oppression, who deeply understands the like problems of having this hegemonic system, who was like fighting for a people that has been oppressed for so long. Um, and to have him say like just carry your torch, carry the torch you can carry, and don't worry about the rest. So that is my leadership style, which is maybe like a cop out, but it's like pick up my torch and I carry it. And if people agree with me, that is awesome. Let's all carry the torches together. And if it's not your thing, that's cool. Just pick up a different torch.
Not gonna lie, when you shared that on Signal, it number one made me cry, and number two,
I
I
know.
screenshotted it because I was like, I need this. I need this reminder.
I want him to like put that on YouTube or something so I can play it all the time. I mean, it's like one of the most meaningful conversations I've had in my life. And it wasn't really a conversation. He gave me a pep talk.
Hey, that's still a conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, and totally understandable. That sounds so meaningful. Um, how have you been protecting your sense of self in this campaign that has been loud and personal and difficult in some ways and will continue to be?
Yeah. I mean, so some of it is remembering Lob saying, like, I just carry my torch and I try not to worry too much about the rest. But I'm also really lucky. Like, I'm in my 40s and every decade has gotten better. And the reason it's gotten better is because I've given less of a shit about the people that I don't know and have had like more deeply rooted, even better, stronger community each decade that goes by. And so when things get overwhelming, I just go hang out with my friends who don't care that I'm running for Congress. I mean, they're like happy for me, but they're like, whatever, it's just Kate. And we talk about the Beckham family drama and what's happening with the British royals. And, you know, we go to concerts. Like, I love live music. That's like a healing sort of experience for me. And just like live in the super present moment with people that love me. I'm also really, really lucky that most of the days I work with 5 of my very closest friends. They take none of my bullshit. Um, Very quick to tell me when I have a stupid idea, but also when it's a reasonable idea, very quick to like jump in and pull it off. And like, we have a ton of fun. Like, we have way more fun than a person should have fighting fascism right now. Um, this is like another story. I was at this event and the national director for the Working Families Party was there, and we were supposed to be going around the room talking about what gives us joy. And he said he has such gratitude for being born in ethically unambiguous times. He was like, we were born to fight fascism, and I wake up every morning and I know whether I'm fighting on the right side of history or not. Like, there is no gray area here. And so that is also, frankly, really helpful, because it's like, what did I do today that made things better or kept them from getting worse? And then, like, that's the job.
Mhm. Yeah, that I also find that really resonant. I think that is the center of my volunteer party work right
Yeah.
now, which like
Yeah.
takes so much. But it's like I know I'm doing everything I can to prevent the fascists in the White House from doing something crazy in a couple years or tomorrow if I can manage it.
The amount of work you do is absolutely insane. You worked so hard. It is very impressive, and I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm trying this year to do a thing where after 9 p.m. I don't take party related phone calls or texts. Um, We'll
What a
see how
statement.
far I get in the year.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Good for you. 9 p.m. feels like that ought to be achievable. And the fact that it's not is also saying something.
Yep, that is, yes, that
Yeah.
is. I'm really on a quest to pay all the county party chairs 65K a year in health insurance, but
Oh, love that.
we need
Sure.
some money from the DNC to make that happen.
We also should pay our state legislators that amount of money while we're, giving people living wages.
Yeah. And like honestly, and I did actually send this information to the DNC because I got an email from like the national chair of the chairs, and I was like, you seem like you want feedback. And I was like, okay, here's the thing. I know the DNC cannot pay for all 100 counties. Pick 10 in 10 swing states.
Yep.
Like, and you will see the transformation that happens in 3 or 4 or 5 years when you let people do this for full time and not
Yeah.
worry about how they pay their health bills.
Our political system exists and barely functions because so many people are willing to work for free. Like,
Which is unsustainable in so many ways.
totally unsustainable. And it's no wonder that like we get part of the way to something and then it kind of falters because people get tired. It like, yes, that's a whole other podcast that we should do sometime about the ways in which our like electoral system takes advantage of people's values as a way to get them to do free labor. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and I would say more uniquely, unfortunately, a Democratic problem than a Republican one. When we do say we are, and I do believe that we are that the Democrats are more the party of the working class than the Republicans. When you see that the Republican president made billions of dollars in his first year in office, um, but we sure don't seem like it when we
yeah,
say, "Cool, I'll take you for the 30 hours a week you can give me for 3 years for no pay."
yeah. But it also makes sense because like, I don't know, the ROI for supporting me is if you're a wealthy person, I'm going to tax the shit out of you and maybe you get to go to heaven. I don't know. Whereas if you are like corporate or extremely wealthy and supporting the Republican Party, like you are actually likely to see literally those dollars come back to you and then some based on that investment. And so it makes sense that there's a ton of money that flows in on the one side and then not a ton of money that flows in on the other. And it's just like a messed up system that it relies essentially exclusively on donors.
Yeah, and we need more Mackenzie Scotts and fewer
We sure do.
Jeff
Actually,
Bezoses.
Mackenzie Scott, get at me because what I need is a Mackenzie Scott.
Yes, Mackenzie Scott, if you're listening. Um,
Melinda
okay.
Gates is also acceptable.
Yes, yes. So now it's time for our lightning round. I like to do a little this or that. Are you ready?
Okay. I am.
Okay, mountains or coast?
Coast.
Sweet tea or unsweet tea?
Sweet.
Biscuit or cornbread?
Biscuit.
County fair or farmer's market?
Yes.
Um, okay, I'm gonna door knocking or phone banking?
Door knocking.
Policy deep dives or big picture vision talks?
All of the above.
Talking with undecideds or talking with skeptics?
Right now, undecided long term skeptics.
Staying in with a book or going out with friends?
Friday night friends, Saturday night book.
Taylor Swift or Haley Williams?
Oh, I can't believe you're making me do this.
I try to make some of these harder than others.
Yeah, I think it's Haley Williams, but like two badass ladies, like, I don't know. Can I have both? I can sing the fate of Ophelia in my sleep. Plus, the father figure Dick's bigger thing really speaks to me. Okay, I'm ready. That was not lightning.
That's true. Honestly, both of them, their recent albums have been completely fire.
Yeah.
Last one, fixing the Congress or fixing the North Carolina DMV?
Fix Congress. If you fix Congress, then you can work on the DMV, but the DMV is awesome. Thank you, DMV.
Awesome. This has been really fun. I have a little like closing to do. So before we wrap up, how can people support your campaign or learn more about what you're building?
Number two things that we need right now, money and volunteers. You can donate or sign up to volunteer at katebarrcanwin.com and follow me on all the social media things at katebarrcanwin. If you don't have time or money to give, like, share, comment, make sure your people know in the district that I'm running. We will win this race if unaffiliated voters know they can pull a Republican ballot and go do it. So that's the biggest hurdle right now.
That makes sense. I'm so glad you shared that. katebarrcanwin.com. Thank you so much for joining us and for stepping in when I know it would have been easier not to. Thank you, everybody who is listening. If this conversation resonated with you at all, I hope you check out Kate Barr's website and her campaign and help us spread the word about the Foxfire Dispatch. You can share this episode, you can send it to somebody who cares about the future of North Carolina, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and especially if you could on YouTube. We drop new episodes on Fridays, almost every Friday, mostly every other Friday. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at the Foxfire Dispatch, and on TikTok and Twitter at Foxfire Dispatch. Our music is produced by John Pitts, and the show is written and executive produced by me, Liz Purvis. Thank you, everybody, for doing the work, however you are. Until next time, go get in some good trouble.
Start a new